Hello, everybody. Gary Laubach, Mike Joseph. We are behind the mic. Go Pards. What an effort this past Saturday as they knock off a ranked team for the first time since 2013. They got the job done. Mike, it was just such an exciting game to watch. Despite the conditions, despite the weather, Lafayette was so efficient in that football game.
Yeah, they were so efficient. Offensively, they were so balanced, which was amazing. And it was just a lot of fun to watch. In my opinion, they dominated the entire game from start to finish. They had 3 times they had a 2-score lead. They dominated on the ground. They kept the ball away from Holy Cross, especially in the first half. The defense stepped up in the first half, made some plays, got some stops, got that 2-score lead. And, again, there was just no way that the Holy Cross defense was going to stop them the entire game. And they kind of took their foot off the pedal a little bit in the second half. They only threw 6 passes in the second half. I thought they could have scored a lot more points. But they worked the clock. They did what they needed to do, and it was just an impressive win overall. They just came out and took it away from Holy Cross right from the start.
So they're going to have a winning season. That's a definite now. First time since 2009, but that's not enough. A winning season right now is certainly not what their goal is. Their goal is to continue on, win the Patriot League. They are all by themselves at the number 1 spot in the Patriot League. Everybody else has a loss, so everything is right there in front of the Leopards right now. Holy Cross had an 18-game winning streak going into that ball game against Patriot League opponents. That has been stopped. The last team to beat them prior was Lafayette also. Mike, I want to talk about some of the heroes of the ball game, and I'm going to start with maybe the one most people don't think enough about. That's that offensive line. The offensive line, I thought, played a spectacular game.
Yeah, it's the complete difference this year compared to last year. The way they can control the line of scrimmage, and you saw it in the last drive where they ran the ball 7 straight times and then ended up scoring. They got 4 or 5 first downs. They killed the last 6 minutes of the game. It was just so impressive from a standpoint of something that we haven't seen here in a while. And when you put 5 guys together and then you add Gilbert in there and you add Dallas Holmes in there, they just control the line of scrimmage. And it's so cliche, as everybody says, if you can control the line of scrimmage, you can win the ball game. You can run the ball, you can throw the ball, and it just makes such a difference. And the guys in there deserve, honestly, all the credit in the world. Barr and Boshi and obviously Olmstead and Shearer, and they're just fantastic up front. And they control every game from the start. They get the running game going. I think, again, another unsung hero is T.J. DiMuzio, the offensive coordinator. Yes. He had his hands tied last year. He just couldn't open the playbook up, couldn't risk things down the field. This year it's completely different, and obviously you add Dean DeNoble in there. We talk about Jamar, but you add Dean DeNoble in there, it's a completely different offense, and John talked about it last week, Coach Trox, about how we're a different team than we were last year, and they showed it on Saturday.
Just 2 yards shy of 500 total yards on offense by Lafayette in that football game. And as Mike already mentioned, the balance was ridiculous. 262 throwing the ball, 236 running with the football. Dean had an absolutely great game. All right, Matt Sluka, obviously a Superman performance running the football. But in the weather, he had trouble throwing the ball. His receivers had trouble catching the ball. Dean DeNoble didn't have that problem, and that's hard to fathom in those conditions.
Yeah, you saw Saluk on the other side. Just he didn't really seem to get a grip on the ball. 7 for 21 in the ball game. He was ineffective through the air, and then turned to his legs, and that's what he does best. And but if you look at DeNoble on the other side, it just looks to me like Dean had a feeling for the ball. When they're wet, you don't want to grip the ball too tightly. You almost want to palm the ball. And you could see in a couple situations, especially the throw to Dallas down the middle of the field, he kind of palmed the ball and let it roll off his fingers. He was throwing perfect spirals. His receivers stepped up and made some big-time plays. If you look at Dean right now, if he never threw another pass here at Lafayette, he would have the 3rd highest completion percentage of all time at Lafayette College. So, I mean, the kid is just doing spectacular things. Every time his number's called, he makes the right decision. And knock on wood, he hasn't thrown an interception in an FCS game this year. I mean, the only 2 he threw was against Duke. So the kid is just doing everything right. He's taking the offensive plays. He's committing, to the offense. The one mistake he did make, I thought, was on the 4th and 7 where they went for it. If he throws that ball quick out to the outside on the quick screen out to Stewart either gets the first down or scores. But that was a design play, fake it, come back, run the quarterback draw. They didn't pick it up, but they left Holy Cross in bad field position. But, the kid's doing everything. The offense is clicking, and it's really fun to watch.
Talk about doing everything. Jamar Curtis looks all world right now as a running back, as the numbers you all probably know by now. 229 yards, carried the ball 30 times. We've had some great tailbacks, and he is finding a way to maybe get on that list.
Yeah, he really is, and I never thought he'd be a 30-carry guy, And think about it, you don't have Najee Adams, so you don't have that extra guy to put in there. Conyers is getting his spots here or there, but he is the guy. And on that last drive, he did not come out of the ball game. He carried the ball downhill. He found his seams. He picked up first downs on short yardage, and then he pops one through there in a 9-man, 10-man front. It was a 9-man front against 7 blockers, and he makes 2 guys miss. He gets to the house. Kid's incredible, and Lafayette's offense is spectacular.
And the receivers, I thought, had a great game. The wide receivers, they caught 12 passes, and 5 different receivers caught them. And it was in horrible conditions. Again, that ball's got to be so slippery. And, again, give credit to Dean, give credit to the wide receivers. Just a great all-around offensive ball game. Defensively, Marco Olivas led in tackles for maybe the first time in the last few ball games. Billy Schaefer all over the field again. The defense certainly struggled with Sluka. And you know why. You always tell me when a quarterback can run, it adds a dimension that's very difficult to defend.
Yeah, it does. And there were situations where they actually had 10 blockers and Saluka in the backfield. You saw some of those real tight formations they went to. They were trying to grind it out, and he runs a lot like Curtis does. He stays back there. He looks for things. He looks for openings, and then he pops, and he has a speed. And you know what? I've tackled guys like him, but he must have that extra strength in the lower body, the torso, that you just can't wrap him up. And you saw Marco, and you saw Preston Forney, and some of the other guys struggle to tackle him. So there were situations where I'm sure those guys, and again, I think the weather played into it as well, but he was a handful. The defense, I think, has to kind of take a step back right now, refocus themselves, refocus their goals, refocus where they want to be, and this is a Georgetown team that's really going to present some problems for them.
Yeah, no question about that. On special teams, give them credit too. Certainly Troy Bruce had a big effect on the ball game with some returns, and Jack Simonetta has been outstanding. You don't even consider him a freshman, but as a freshman, he's getting the job done.
Yeah, he did. And I thought his kickoffs, the first kickoff of the game was a mistake by Holy Cross. Instead of fair catching the football, he fielded it inside the 1. Lafayette knocked him down at the 19. And as the returner came off the field, I saw Bob Chesney go to him and pretty much say, "We've got to fair catch that football." So they made some mistakes on special teams. We made the big pop. I thought Troy Bruce's return on the kickoff across the 50-yard line after a score was huge to get the momentum back, to put us back in field position, not buckle us in tight deep. But I thought we only punted the ball 1 time. I mean, Lafayette started the game touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. They ended the game touchdown, touchdown, turnover on downs, touchdown. So they started and finished the game with 6 out of 7 possessions for scores. In my opinion, I'm obviously looking at it through maroon clover glasses. The game wasn't close, really, in my opinion. I thought Lafayette control the entire day.
Now, the hard part is we have to totally forget about that game because we've got a good football team. Georgetown will be hosting the Leopards. They're 4-4, 2-1. They have a big win over Fordham. Maybe the other surprise win in the Patriot League this year. 28-24, they knocked them off. Now the other surprise is they lost to Colgate 28-18. Colgate's looking like a much better football team. They beat Lehigh 17-7. So those are their 2 Patriot League victories. Mike, it's a team that averages 25 points a game. They've got an outstanding quarterback in Tyler Knopp. He is not a big threat to run, however, like Sluka is, but he does throw a good pass. In fact, I think in the Lehigh game he was like 22 for 23.
Yeah, he got off to a great start in that game. He throws a gorgeous pass. He's got some receivers out there that can make things happen. They run an offense that's very similar to ours. They spread it around. They get out of the pocket. They drop it off. He's not a guy that's going to obviously run like Saluka is. He's a kind of a slight kid, and he's got a little ankle issue right now. I saw he was limping around a little bit, so I don't think they really want him doing that. But they present a lot of problems. They got a really good running back. Again, the wide receivers, Dunneman is terrific on the outside. They've always presented a problem for us. You know, they really have presented a problem. They kind of dominated us last year. So this is a game where our defense has to step up. They have to continue to put pressure on. I think we got out of our run lanes a little bit last week. We got out of our pass rush lanes. That's got to be squared up a little bit. But they present a problem, and Lafayette cannot be looking past this game. It's one day at a time, and I'm sure John Troxel is preaching that in the locker room.
And they know, too, that they have to win this game, Georgetown, if they're going to have any chance to be a Patriot League champion. They rush the ball pretty well, 174 a game. They throw it, as we said, quite well, 221 a game. They have 395 total yards per ball game, so they're a good offensive unit. On the defensive side, they do give up 21 points a ball game, and I think the Leopards are probably playing their best offensive football game of the year. They give up 162 yards passing, 132 running. And as Mike mentioned, Josh Stakely's as good as there is as far as a wide receiver is concerned. Their defense, led by David Ely, their linebacker, Zaron Daniel, their safety. What we have to avoid, and we've already mentioned it, no hangover effect. You got to forget about this ball game and go out and win. We can beat Georgetown. We're a better team.
I think we are a better team, and I don't think they've seen a team that can run the football like we can, consistently run the football. And has a quarterback that's as accurate as we are. We have wide receivers, like you said, that are stepping up. But I think their defense is going to be really tested this week about stopping the run, which should open up some things on the outside. If they add an extra guy to the box, those type of things. And, it's funny because I printed something out here about refocusing, about how do you refocus yourself? How do you set small goals? How do you become a team that's, gets more comfortable within yourself? Just resetting yourself. And coaches talk about that, and we hate hearing it one day at a time, one play at a time, one snap at a time. But it is so true because this team has to basically kind of go back to fundamentals defensively. I don't think they're very happy, Lafayette, about the way they played defensively, giving up that many yards, especially when a player on the losing side gets defensive or offensive player of the week in the FCS. So I think they're a little bit upset about that, but you got to refocus. You got to understand where you came from, what got you to this point. And I think Marco Olivas is a guy that can lead that group.
I agree. What are you going to focus on inside the huddle?
We're going to talk about the offense for Georgetown. We're going to talk about how multiple they are. We're going to talk about how it's formation recognition, because they run a lot of the same formations, but they run a lot of different stuff out of it. So can you focus in on, okay, is there a tight end or an H-back in the game? It's more heavy run when they do that. They run a lot of play action. They will spread you out and get their receivers out, much like Lafayette, doubles on both sides, stacks on both sides. But what are they going to do formation? Can we recognize formations? Can we pin in on that and understand what they do out of certain sets that can help us out on first down?
Well, if you're going to do a complete scouting report, you've got to watch this show, you've got to watch Mike's show, and then you're ready for Saturday action. Kickoffs at 12:30. It is in Washington, D.C. You can watch the ball game on ESPN+. That's Behind the Mic for this week. We'll see you again next week. Thanks for watching.